What's up guys, I'm randomfrankp. Today we're going to be putting two keyboards head to head from two very popular companies. The Razer Blackwidow X Chroma keyboard versus the Corsair Gaming K70 RGB Rapidfire keyboard. These are both new keyboards in their product line, and they're going to offer consumers a great option if you're looking to buy a new gaming keyboard. Now I'm not going to be picking a winner or a loser here, simply going over the features of each, pros and cons, and just talking about my specific experience with each one in depth, so that in the end, you guys can choose which one is best for you. Let's start off with going over the features of the Blackwidow X Chroma. The keyboard itself is extremely solid and is made of this nice military grade metal top construction, which is definitely a welcome change from their plastic construction keyboards in the past. We have 10 key rollover, 1000 Hz ultra polling, and an 80 million keystroke lifespan on their specific Razer green mechanical switches. More on these later on. This time around, Razer decided to ditch the macro buttons on the left hand side, as well as ditching the USB pass-through and the integrated headphone jack and microphone jack on the keyboard. Not entirely sure why, but I think people would prefer having this metal keyboard if it meant getting rid of those things at the cost. Taking a look at the keycap, Razer also ditched that old aggressive looking gamer font and went for a more traditional character key, which I think is really nice. Now underneath those keycaps is where these keyboards really differ greatly. I mentioned Razer uses their own mechanical switches that require 50 grams of actuation force, but they are really tactile switches that are similar to blues and feel much better than the older Kale switches from older models. And then we have the LED light. It is housed in this hunk of plastic on the top of the switch that will ultimately help prevent it from ESD, and it's going to sort of widen the light surface area, giving it a brighter appearance when shining. Now let's quickly shift gears here and go talk about the Corsair side of things with their new Rapidfire keyboard. The keyboard itself is also very solid with a nice brushed aluminum finish. I think it looks really nice. We get 100% anti-ghosting and full key rollover, a detachable rubberized wrist rest, texture keycap set for FPS and MOBA gamers, dedicated media keys on the top right hand side of the keyboard for quick and easy access to those controls, plus a USB pass-through for connecting hard drives, flash drives, even your mouse if you want to avoid another cable spanning across your desk. Taking a page out of the Strafe playbook though, the Rapidfire returns with that aggressive gamer font on the keycaps that I was happy Razer ditched, and I'm just not the biggest fan of how they look, but I mean honestly you can just buy different keycap sets if it bothers you that much. Personally, I don't care. And then underneath the keycaps here, again, are these new Cherry MX Speed switches. These are true Cherry switches, and they are a huge change from the lineup here. They feature an ultra-fast 1.2mm actuation point and only 45 grams of force. To give you an idea what that means, most keyboards have to travel 2mm before the key switch actuates or registers as a key press. With these speed switches, you only have to press them down 1.2mm, which is almost half the distance. I'll talk about these more in a little bit when it gets to the comparison in more detail. And then again, we have the LED light, which is housed in this crystallized shell, which is going to lessen the likelihood of ESD, which if you don't know is like an LED light burnout. So given the two keyboards at first glance, they both just look really nice, I think. Both are made out of metal, while Razer went with that matte stealth appearance. Corsair then went with the brushed metal appearance like we saw in the past. I mean, it's really no brainer that Corsair has the upper hand in terms of physical features though, like having the dedicated media keys and a scrolling volume wheel, which is huge for me. The USB pass-through is great, and things like the extra keycaps and the wrist rest is also a nice addition from Corsair. While both keyboards don't have macros on these respective models, each key can be individually programmed if you want within their software, so you can record your own macros, so it's really not a big deal. Now the two biggest factors when buying a keyboard, and given the fact that you're watching this video about these two keyboards in particular, are one, the LEDs. There's really no denying it. The large audience of consumers out there love RGB lights. It lets them customize, personalize, and match the colors to the rest of their setup's aesthetics. This is why I really find them so appealing as well. If you have a red and black setup, you can change the lights to red if you want. In my case, I like them to be white and blue to fit in with my setup. So these RGB lights, which keyboard does it better? Honestly, it's not too different. On the older Blackwidow models and even Corsair's recent Strafe keyboard, they had this white backplate underneath the keys, which is going to make them kind of shine brighter. The effect would be that the lights would be shining off the top of the keyboard, reflect onto the bottom of the white plate. In return, look to be shining brighter with more saturated colors. They both didn't include that this time around, and now the lights are just shining off of this black metal. Both keyboards display the 16.8 million colors very well, with noticeable color differences, and effects in the transitions of each keyboard are very smooth. But in terms of brightness, I think Razer kind of takes the cake here. It's most likely just due to the fact that the plastic LED light in the Razer keyboard is sitting in that kind of shell thing. It's kind of giving the effect that there's just a more surface area overall to the light, so it's shining brighter. Not a huge difference. I'd say the Razer keyboard shines about 25% brighter. It's honestly not a big deal, but it is noticeable side by side. They are both very bright during the daytime and are extremely bright at night with no lights on. I also know people who will keep the brightness at these keyboards only around 50%, so it should be ample enough for you. But if the lights are a huge factor, I'll give Razer the edge here. Now, the second most important factor obviously are the key switches. And this is where it all definitely goes different directions. They're polar opposites here. Razer is tactile, Corsair is linear. Razer is like blues, Corsairs are very similar to clears. Razer needs 50 grams of force, Corsair needs 45 grams of force. But the biggest difference overall is that Corsair uses genuine cherry switches, while Razers are not. Razers are made out of their own factory in China, while Corsairs come straight from Germany, where all these cherry switches have been made. Real quick before I break it down, here is a sound test of each keyboard. So as you heard, Razer gives you that tactile, clicky key like the blue switches do, and that smooth linear switch from Corsair is similar to clears, if this means anything to you. It really all depends what you are looking for or what your personal preference is for a switch, but let's not forget the advantage that these speed switches have from Corsair. At 1.2 millimeters of actuation, you're almost getting twice as many key presses in the same time as someone with a regular mechanical keyboard, if you are bottoming the key out. And during my review, people in the comments were very quick to dismiss this, saying it's a gimmick, but it actually is a game changer. I noticed it right away when I was gaming, and for some people it will give them a competitive edge and can be the difference between life and death in whatever game you're playing. Personally, I do like them. I felt quicker in games like CSGO, and switching back to a regular keyboard is when I really noticed the change. Now to wrap this up, I'll go over the pros and cons of each keyboard. Pros for the Razer are that it's a nice looking keyboard overall. The metal construction I think looks great. The lights are very bright. The software is very fluid with it as well. It's user friendly. I don't want to really bore you with software talk, but Razer Synapse software has improved greatly over the years, and it's probably the easiest to use when it comes to customizing your keyboards, lighting effects and animations, even like making your own or recording macros. Pros for the Rapidfire are that the speed switches are a game changer. I really like them a lot. It comes with a ton of extra accessories inside the box. The USB pass-through and dedicated media keys are always a welcomed addition on my desk. And these lights, again, they're bright enough, the effects are fluid, and so on. But the last pro here, which is kind of a double-edged sword, I've talked about it before, and it's going to lead me into my cons, is that brushed metal finish. While I, for one, think it looks nice, brushed metal is an absolute pain to keep clean. Over time, dust, little hairs if you have pets, anything and everything will accumulate in this keyboard and get stuck in those very fine lines on that brushed metal finish. If you don't care, then that's great, but if you're like me and you want to keep it clean 24/7, you're going to have some problems. The next con, which really isn't a con at all, but it's more of just a con when you're comparing it to the Razer keyboard, is their software. It's just still not as user-friendly as Razer's. I tried making my own effects with different layers and different animations, but in the end I just couldn't get it to fully work. With Razer, it was simple, but one advantage that the Corsair Q software has, you can go into the Corsair forums and download hundreds upon hundreds of user-made effects that you can instantly just use on your keyboard. Any effect and animation that you can think of, odds are it's there for you to download on their forums, which is really cool. Now I'll switch to the cons from Razer. Two main things here, which I didn't mention earlier, is that there are channels on the bottom side of the keyboard here, so you can route the cable out the left, right, or out the back side. It's great and all, but that channel is very, very thin, and they have these little teeth to kind of keep the cable nice and secure, but it's kind of damaged my braided cord already, to the point where I didn't even want to use those channels anymore. Second, which is kind of an obvious one here, are the switches. Again, you'll either not notice a difference at all and think they're blues and be fine with that, or you will notice. But someone like me who is always trying out new keyboards, and really any keyboard enthusiast will be able to tell right away that these are not genuine cherry keys. Deal breaker, definitely not. And they kind of make up for it with that reconstruction of the switch itself to allow for the 80 million key presses over the previous 60 million, I believe. So odds are you won't be having a dud switch anytime soon from pressing it, and if you do, you need to go outside. But honestly, in the end, they're both really great keyboards. You can't go wrong with either one, and I would recommend either one of these. They each have their own pros and cons, yes, but it's just going to come down to a matter of preference. They are both very competitively priced, and in the end, just know whichever one you pick, you are getting the best of the best out there. Well guys, that's going to do it for my comparison of these two keyboards, the Razer Blackwidow X Chroma and the Corsair Gaming K70 RGB Rapidfire keyboard. Hopefully this video helped you out. If you're in the market to pick up a new keyboard, if you were trying to pick up one of the two, hopefully it gave you a better idea of which one is more for you. If it did help you, please give this video a big thumbs up to show your support. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at randomfrankp, and I'll also put in the description down below links to where you can buy these keyboards, as well as the dedicated review for each one. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. You're not going to want to miss out any future content or any future reviews I got coming up to the channel as well. Well, I'm Random Frank P. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good day.